Hello, dear viewers of our program, Stop the Destruction of the World. The human being's health is one of our main intents, and the human being's destruction of health is something that we have been dealing with for many years. And lately, we've called your attention to the question of the vaccines, medication, agrotoxics, polluters that are highly injurious regarding our physical and psychological health. We have followed the epidemic increase of certain types of illnesses, cancer, for example, which is a disease specifically caused by irradiation and mainly stress. Only that this notion about stress is very little adopted by the establishment or by the big universities, the media, because it takes away the power to, so to speak, the pharmaceutical industries that have huge profits from medical sales. And even with exams and chemotherapy operations, radiotherapy, so these treatments of traditional medicine actually, besides not helping the cancer patient's cure, they aggravate and speed up their death. This research is done by independent professionals, scientists of a high integrity, honesty, and they are detached from these big institutions linked to the economic power. But recently, a Chinese scientist from Connecticut in the United States brought to light the following question: that cancer is not as one thinks, caused by the deterioration of some cancerous cells, and that eventually cause metastasis in the organism. It is the fruit mainly of stress, something that we've been talking and studying already for many years. But now, some physicians in some of the medical institutions start venting this possibility that stress could be related to that. Up to now, as this article says, one knows that the chronic inflammations are the key causes of stress and not the other way around. That stress causes chronic inflammations. And stress causing the chronic inflammations, such as a consequence, causes sicknesses like cancer. And cancer is not something that initiates in a cell and spreads around. Cancer reaches the DNA of all cells because it is a sign that comes from the psychic center of our psychoneuroimmunology that gives a sign for all the cells of the organism. It can reach a weaker organ or another initially. Dr. Keppe, I wish that the population who watches us would get more aware of the difference between serious and independent scientists who do research and the ones who are completely attached to what we call the big medias and the big colleges, financed by the economic power.
Imagine if one day the people suddenly realize that they are being thoroughly deceived, mainly in regard to medicine, and also, of course, in regard to law, human rights. Because, as Dr. Claudius spoke about in the last program, if there is an accusation made against someone, like against a scientist, for example, or anyone, so this accusation that the accuser does must be proven by him, and not the one who is being accused must prove that it's not true. Take you, for example, any one of you. Suddenly an enemy of yours says, "This guy stole this lady's bag there on the corner. I saw it." So, are you the one then who has to prove in a court of law that you didn't steal it? Or is it the one who accused you who has to prove his accusation to be true? See how terrible is the inversion in law. We can say that it's not really so much a question of medicine being inverted, but that of the law, creating laws that are not only wrong, but absolutely horrible for people. As that German emperor once said, if the people knew how sausages and the laws were made, they wouldn't sleep at night. Look how interesting. So, what is needed is that the world has to have a notion of psychopathology and sociopathology, that every person is at least to some degree or another paranoid. He is sick with terrible ideas in his mind. Now, imagine a simple person from among the people who has no power, who just stays all his life in blah 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 all the time. This doesn't disturb anything. But imagine if this person arrives at a position of some power. Imagine the harm that he'll create, because he's going to think everything in an opposite way, inverted. He's going to condemn the good individual and protect the criminal, the delinquent person. Look, consider well what I'm saying, because it's time now for the people to perceive that it's necessary to stop this social inversion, at least a bit, in order to have a more peaceful life. Let's see now a very interesting opinion, something that is absolutely true, from Dr. Giraldo. He brought from the United States a very important research in relation to medicine. Just look at what he has to say in this interview.
Desde la década de los 70 del siglo pasado se viene cuestionando en varios países de habla hispana el asunto de la efectividad científica de las vacunas. Y es así como, por ejemplo, en España, la Corporación de las Medicinas Integrales, en Colombia la Corporación Autonomía en Salud, en México Vivo y Sano México o Monarcas México, en Perú la organización que se conoce con el nombre de Monarcas Perú y muchas otras en Argentina, Chile, Ecuador, vienen estudiando con lujo de detalles y demostrando y llevando al público sus descubrimientos de que las vacunas son uno de los errores más graves de la medicina basados en las teorías erróneas de Louis Pasteur.
As you saw, Dr. Giraldo showed not only an error, but even the danger in relation to taking vaccines, because they are elements that come from the change made when microbes are injected into cattle and are then transformed into vaccines. These are referred to in medicine as vacuum. So, let's see a chart that I've made for you that shows the damages resulting from Pasteur's theories. First,
bacteria are necessary for the organism's health.
Bacteria are like the bees, like the ants, insects, that even pollinate the plants. Bacteria are not pathogenic elements, as they are referred to, but they are fundamental elements for the human being's life. And secondly, let's see.
The agrotoxics and asepsis constitute nature's destruction.
Imagine, every home has these things full of disinfectants, bathroom antiseptics, etc. This is entirely unnecessary. The only element that is good for this is water, H2O. It's only water that does what's needed. But just check the rivers and verify the amount of poisonous elements there.
Yes, and it's a danger in the houses, the children ingesting these toxic elements.
The smell, the fumes.
The smell harms the respiratory ways.
Imagine, it's a powerful industry.
Very powerful.
That deceives the people.
There are even natural elements. Dr. Giraldo has, in his Department of Integral Health of our society, indications of natural elements, for example, vinegar to treat fungus. And they are correctly natural, antibacteriologic. Even garlic is a natural element that rebalances the flora and the human being.
Exactly. Let's see now on the chart in third place.
Illnesses and evils come from the human being's inner self. Everything that exists through nature is good, true, and beautiful.
It's even lucky when, for example, insects show up on a plantation, and even if it causes some damage by eating some leaves to a lesser or larger degree. So, in general, this is necessary, because what the insects destroy is something that needs to be destroyed. Therefore, we cannot go against nature. You know, there is an idea that many people have that nature is wrong. And you know, there is a very important discovery that Freud accepted that comes from a Hungarian psychoanalyst who said the following, that there are 3 phases in a person's development. The first one is up to 2 years of age, called the oral phase. From birth until 2 years of age, he puts everything into his mouth to feel through the mouth. So the only instrument of knowledge that the child has is through the mouth. That's why it's called the oral phase. So, if later this person remains fixed in these first 2 years, later on he will want to eat too much, he'll become obese. Do you know that more than 60% of the American population is exaggeratedly obese? And it's because of this. Because of a very childish attitude with food. It's the same with drug consumption or cigarette smoking. It's because of this fixation on the first 2 years of life. It's even the cause of the mental illness called manic depressive psychosis. It's something whereby the person withdraws himself from everything, wanting everybody to do everything for him. For example, individuals that are exceedingly dependent on religion, wanting God to solve all his problems, instead of the fact that it's he himself who has to solve his problems. He has to help God to solve problems, and not God all the time solving his problems. This erroneous philosophy of prosperity that many people are trying to live by.